Ukrainian people getting out of the control of one gang of thugs and under the control of these bankers in Europe, these central bankers, Goldman Sachs and others. The other aspect of this is the military buildup. You had an article today about Russia puts fighter jets on combat alert as tensions mount. I mean, the Crimea is vitally important to the Russians from a strategic standpoint, just as Ukraine is from a food standpoint.
Precisely, and that's the biggest danger, isn't it? And now a lot of top analysts are saying this is the start of a new Cold War.
Yes.
You could see it coming beforehand because Russia and China have been engaged in some of the biggest military buildups and aggressive military rhetoric for the past decade or so. I mean, I've written several articles over the past few months. China conducting attacks on mock US aircraft carriers. They're putting out editorials in state media talking about how the president of China is preparing the PLA for a new giant war. And then you had the display for the recent Land Rover program in China, where the backdrop for the image was a picture of a mushroom cloud over Europe. It was just an accident. But continued state media editorials in Chinese media talking about targeting the US militarily. China, of course, just got its first actual aircraft carrier. They're talking about building more of those. So it's Iran, Russia, and China lined up against the United States. It is a new Cold War. And the fact that neoliberals and neoconservatives are willing to foster that by antagonizing Russia, by fostering this revolution right on its border, just shows how insanely diabolical their plans are, and the fact that they have no genuine concern about the future of the world, because they're creating a situation which could go hot very, very soon. Now we've got analysts, even BBC analysts, talking about a, quote, hot war in Ukraine. So,
well, the war is the lifeblood of the war is lifeblood of the state, isn't it? And you've got both the American government as well as the Chinese government as well as the Russian government. They all can make themselves more important in everybody's lives if they create fear about an outbreak of war. But again, you see in this buildup here in the Ukraine, if that fosters another Cold War, if that fosters another military buildup with a military-industrial complex, who benefits from that? Well, of course, the same bankers that are trying to get control of the Ukraine, isn't it?
Well, precisely. And it also distracts from domestic unrest in America, because as you were talking about before, again, the food price issue in America, once that builds, once people's wallets begin to be hit more and more, there is a potential for unrest. I mean, I did the article yesterday. Pat Cadell, former presidential advisor and pollster, basically said that the soft oppression that Americans are currently experiencing could lead to a Kiev-style uprising in the United States. And then, of course, you have the U.S. Army building fake towns, $96 million worth, with churches, you know, municipal buildings, underground subways for the Army to train to deal with domestic unrest. Of course, it's passed off in the media, oh, there's a mosque. Well, yeah, there was a mosque. There was also a Christian church. So it's multifaceted. Yes, it's for foreign occupation, but it's also for domestic preparation, because we know that Fort Hood soldiers and others are being trained that Christians, Tea Party supporters, anti-abortion activists are a radical terror threat. We've had those articles in the past. Department of Homeland Security, of course, in its own funded document, describes liberty lovers, that's their quote, liberty lovers, as domestic extremists, links them alongside terrorists. So you have a federal government in the United States that's increasingly paranoid about its own citizens, which is why they can unite the country around an external threat, which again benefits the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, you know, we tried to get them to talk to us at the Asymmetric Warfare Center there in Virginia, where they built that city. You know, Paul, it was originally going to be like $60 million, and they went 50% over budget on that. But we wanted to ask them some questions about that. I wanted to see if they really did have a mosque. Did you ever see a picture of a mosque there? Because all I saw was the footage that they put out. We used that we used that in our report, but all I saw was a small town Christian church. Did you see any other pictures that actually showed a mosque, or did they say that they had a mosque other than the article that the Telegraph had?
No, I actually saw the picture of the mosque with the minaret, but they also had, as you said, a Christian church. So
yeah.
We're all being targeted, whether it's Muslims in the Middle East or Americans at home. I don't think you find many small Christian churches like that in a lot of Muslim countries. So, it's targeting all of us.
Oh, well, it's clearly an American city. They had handicap parking signs. They had speed limit signs. They had a subway there with the logo from the Washington, D.C. subway. I mean, everything was very, very detailed. I found another video where they were actually laying down the slab when they were into the construction process, and it actually showed them stubbing up electrical and plumbing. I mean, these are not shells of buildings like they have trained with in the past. This is something where they are training. They see us as the insurgents in an asymmetric warfare. And it's very clear based on the research that you've done about the ammunition purchases, what we see happening with these military vehicles. When we come back, I want to ask you about what's going on in Scotland. We reported on this a year ago, but now Scotland has passed a law that has tremendous implications for parents. We're going to talk to Paul Joseph Watson right after this break.
With a little know-how.
He's in the UK, and we've been talking about the IMF and the international bankers making their move, as they've been telegraphing for quite some time. Now it's become very obvious. They've actually put a price tag on it. $35 million. That's the price of the freedom of the Ukrainian people. They're going to loot them and rob them 5 different ways, as they've always done everybody when they come in and take over. But now, Paul, I wanted to talk to you about this law that just passed. We covered this when it came out a year ago, practically in April last year. They were putting forth a bill in Scotland called the Children and Young People's Bill. And, of course, this is going to, this now passed just within the last week, and it is going to assign a government guardian to every child in Scotland from birth until 18 years old. That's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of reaction from that, from the Christian community there, from people who understand the purpose of the family and who are concerned about government intrusions in the family. What's your take on this, Paul?
Well, David, I mean, this is chilling cradle-to-grave tyranny.
Yes.
Imagine if they uncovered an Obamacare regulation which said, oh, by the way, the government has a minder assigned to every child in the United States up to the age of 18. There would be an outcry. Yet this bill has passed, largely unopposed in Scotland. Every child, the NHS will appoint a health worker to act as a named person, a guardian for every child up until the age of 5. Then it passes over to the local government council. They will assign individuals to monitor every single child in Scotland to, quote, ensure any potential cases of abuse or developmental difficulties are spotted and acted upon. What does that mean? Well, in the UK, just as in the US with the CPS, they steal children to meet quotas. In the case of the UK, it's adoption quotas. We've had a case just in the past week where a 4-year-old boy was torn from a loving middle-class family simply to meet an adoption quota. We've had cases in Colchester, Essex recently, where a family had 7 children. They attempted to have another baby. They had the baby. It was taken away from them by the government because the government said their family was too large. We've had children taken away from families because they're, quote, too fat.
Wow.
And then we've had babies removed for apparently no reason whatsoever. So this is about making it easier for the state to steal people's children. And then you connect it to other articles like last year, I believe it was, or a couple of years ago, there was a family in northern England, not far from where I used to live in Rotherham. They were members of the UK Independence Party. The parents were the foster parents, which is a major party expected to win the European parliamentary elections. Mm-hmm. The local council removed their 2 foster children because they were members of that political party, because according to the council, the party is, quote, racist because it opposes mass uncontrolled immigration. And despite the fact that these foster parents had a fantastic track record, loving parents with numerous different children, numerous different backgrounds and ethnicities, they took the children away because they were members of a political party, a mainstream political party that opposes immigration. So
that's amazing.
Why they're doing it.
Well, we can see this happening in America. We have this Connecticut teenager whose parents took her to Massachusetts to get treatment. And because one hospital, Tufts, said that it was a physical problem, Boston Children's Hospital said it was a mental problem, they took that decision away from the parents. Absolutely amazing. We see where this is headed. Thanks, Paul. We'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
In the last 50 years, iodine has been phased out of our staple foods and replaced with the halogen bromine, a practice now banned in nations around the world. Guess what else is in the halogen family? Fluoride. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Jones here. In 1924, the federal government did the right thing and encouraged salt producers to add iodine. It's the good halogen on the periodic table, and the results are on record. Reports documented a 15-point IQ increase in areas that had previously been deficient in iodine. Bottom line, iodine is important. Unbound, clean, in a glycerin base. Nascent iodine was the answer for myself and my family. You will find Survival Shield Nascent Iodine exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWars Life Survival Shield Nascent Iodine isn't just for emergencies. I take it every day. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.